The gospel this morning, my friends. Thank you to the choir. Thank you to our director, our conductor, the band, everybody. Awesome. Almost forgot that I had to get up and say something. First chapter of John, verses 6 through 8, and then 19 through 28. You can find it, if you'd like, on page 91 in your pew Bibles. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. No one has ever seen God. Wait a minute. This is the testimony given to John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny it, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" And he said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." Then they said to him, "Who are you? Let us have an answer for those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" And John said this, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord,' as the prophet Isaiah said." Now they had been sent from the Pharisees, and they asked him, "Why then are you baptizing if you're neither the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?" And John answered them, "I baptize with water. Among you stands one whom you do not know, the one who is coming after me, and I am not worthy to untie the thong of his sandal." This took place in Bethany, across the Jordan, where John was baptizing. In the 1850s and 1860s in England, there was a sound about, and it was not angels singing on high. It was the sound of clanking and thumping and banging and squeaking, and it was scaring the daylights out of everyone who heard it, the people, the animals, everybody. And it got so bad in England that people went to their elected officials and said, "You have to do something about this." And they did, which in and of itself is a little shocking, right? But Parliament got together and they said, "We have to do something about the banging and the clanging and the thumping and the smoke and the sparks." And they passed a bill. They legislated. That's what they do. And these acts, these bills, they passed 3 of them over a series of years, were known as the Locomotive Acts. We have sound effects here. There we go. We'll pass a bill for that next week. They passed the Locomotive Acts. This banging and clanging was the sound of steam. It was the sound of mechanized transportation that didn't rely upon horses to get people from place to place. And so what Parliament did is they said, in order for people to be ready for this to happen in their villages and in their town squares and in London, if you are going to be on one of these contraptions, what you need to do is you need to find another person, read another man, and you need to provide him with a flag that's red. And you need to have him proceed in front of you. These are the English. He needs to proceed in front of you at a reasonable distance so that people will know that you are approaching. Can you imagine if you had to do that every time you got in your car? You had to have someone go in front of you with a flag, waving it, letting people know that you were coming? It would be inconvenient, to say the least, maybe a little bit ridiculous, but this is what Parliament did. They passed these acts. And so people all over England, when they got into these contraptions, they had someone walk in front of them with a flag, waving it, so that they would know you were coming, as if they couldn't hear you anyway. And so you may be sitting there and you may be wondering, what in heaven's name does that have to do with Advent and with the Gospel of John this morning, and with all of this other stuff that we've been hearing about this morning? Actually, it has a lot to do with it. You see, what we have heard the choir sing this morning is the story of Jesus coming mostly in Matthew and Luke. That's where we get this wonderful story about Elizabeth and Zechariah. That's where we get this wonderful story about Gabriel appearing to Mary and Mary's Magnificat. That's where we get the incredible story of Mary and Joseph traveling and winding up in the manger because they need to be registered because Caesar Augustus put forth a decree. That happens in those two Gospels. But in John, there's no time for that. John gets right to the heart of the matter. John starts us with the light coming into the world, and immediately we proceed to John. John, who was Elizabeth's son. That baby. The one that was such a profound experience that Zechariah couldn't talk. And you see, John, as he began his ministry, as he began to baptize people, John functioned as the flag waver. John was the one out ahead of the banging and the clanging. He was out ahead of all of the stuff that scared the daylights out of people. John was the one who preceded Jesus. John was the one who got people ready for the message that was to come. John had such an important role to play that we have heard about him twice in 4 weeks of Advent. And in many cases, when you have someone who has such an important job to play, it can go to their heads a little bit. But not in John's case. John was very clear that he knew what his job was, what his responsibilities were. He was not the one that was going to change the world. He was the one who was going to wave the flag and let us know that it was coming. And so, this Advent, be prepared for those signs from God. Be prepared because God is still doing things in this world. There are still people who are calling our attention to what is coming next. And they are every bit as important as the one who follows. Amen?